Offensively, we blocked well, ran the football well. Spencer handled the offense well. We made some plays. We were good on third downs. Defensively, we tackled really good for early in the season, which is encouraging. And we couldn't get off the field on third down. So we had 88 plays of defense. If we could have got off the field on 50% less of those third downs, we'd have been in the low 70s and probably held them to 25 points or less. So those are just things that we need to work on this week as we move forward. We need to get better every day and every week on our schemes in all three phases as we move forward throughout the season.
Was there any reoccurring themes as to why third downs are so difficult for the defense?
We just didn't defend. We didn't do a good job getting pressure at the quarterback. We brought some pressure at times, but we didn't get home. And so on most of those times you're in man coverage, and if the quarterback gets 2.8 seconds or more, then usually it doesn't work. So that was the main reason. We just didn't get much pressure on the quarterback.
Coach, I know you said you needed some time to look at Rodriguez on film. After looking at him on film, what did you think about his play?
Well, he played really well. I mean, he's a very intelligent player. He processes information really fast. He sees things and reacts fast, and he's a good tackler. He's a wrestler. He's a good athlete.
You have to have a discussion with Spencer about jumping over guys or taking
no,
contact?
I didn't. No, he's got to play. There was 3 occasions where he initiated contact that he didn't need, in my opinion, but he's played that way throughout his career. So to a certain extent, we just got to let him play.
Mike, going back and looking at it again, the offensive line base, each play seemed to play pretty well, but some of the exceptional plays by the offensive linemen were some of the blocks they got downfield to make. I mean, Tevin had one on Tylan Wallace's that may have been a 20-yard downfield block by a right tackle. Your thoughts on the overall offensive line play?
Well, it's early in all phases. Everybody has to be careful about being on the Kool-Aid early, but it was the highest grade that we ever had as an offensive line group since I've been the head coach. And guys are playing hard and they're downfield. I'm guessing that Coach Dickey's demanding they play that way. They had some mistakes, but overall they played pretty well, and that's what we have to do in order to continue to rush the football.
You say highest grade period or highest grade for an opener?
It was the highest grade that we've ever had that I can remember as a group in the offensive line play.
Can you go through the process of what made Sanders your choice to start, and again, just review how he did?
Well, he played well, handled the offense well. I didn't think that he got flustered at any time, which is important. For a quarterback at any level, at any school, would be my guess. I thought he had enough energy to bring a lot to our team, but not so much that he got out of control. I think that's important at playing the position, and it's just one game. We'll see how he develops as the season goes on, but we were pleased with what we were able to get out of him last Friday night.
Were you planning to use Brown at all, and Sanders' performance kind of made you keep him in, or was
Yes,
that the plan all along?
that's exactly what happened.
First couple of drives, you guys didn't have any pass attempts. Was that by design, or was that just to try to let him get used to the atmosphere of Sanders?
Well, they're rolling a safety over the top of Tylan. So there's just not a lot you can do when they're removing a guy out of the game and they're protecting him just like we get with all the other guys that have played here. Then we have to run the football. Most everything we do, we're going to throw it or run it based on what their safeties do. There's no secret. We've done that here for 6-8 years now. And their approach was to protect Tylan. And so for that reason, we end up running the football.
You said you were going to play some young guys. Trace Ford got a lot of playing time freshman. How do you do against some of the young guys?
They played well. Trace more so than the other guys because he was in there more. Well, I say that. 42 is in there a lot also. Both those guys did well. Trace is really fast and can cover a lot of ground once he sees what's going on, and it seems like he processes information really quick. We had a number of guys that played on special teams that in the early part of the game, they weren't very good, and then by the time the game was over, they were considerably better with assignment and just technique. And that was encouraging. So we feel like it takes more guys to play now than ever before. So there's more young guys that will continue to work in on special teams.
One time, like he's a middle linebacker, and he's like he's on the end, you move him around. What's his position?
He moves around like Brailford does. We feel like he's athletic enough to move around and do some things we did with Jordan. He's not near the player Jordan was at this point, but his athleticism resembles his ability. He's faster. Jordan's not as fast as Trace is, but he's certainly not as experienced and as strong as Jordan was last year.
You saw and probably expected what their secondary did initially on Thailand. Kind of the trick of this, isn't it, is to get them to respect all facets of the offense where they start playing Thailand more honestly. Did you like the way the rest of the offense flowed to kind of start getting that done?
We got better play than what I had anticipated with the 6-6 crew. We were 4 for 4 in catches, made some plays, blocked downfield. And that's an important part of our offense based on the way we structure our schemes. And so we were able to get some good play out of them. And then obviously the quarterback was able to run the football, balances everything out. I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, the defense makes a choice if they want to play this side or they want to play him. I mean, it's a numbers game. And so Sean and our staff, they have a plan for whatever they give us, and then we roll from that point.
Do you have any new information on Calvin Bundage's status, and do you know if he'll be available?
Calvin had a setback about 10 days ago, and so we held him out. And I'm guessing, I haven't talked to anybody. Tomorrow is when I get all those updates, but sometime before noon, and so we might hold him out again this week. Just depends on how he's feeling. He's got a back issue, and they're hard to determine. Sometimes guys come back quick, sometimes they don't, so it doesn't require surgery. It's at a pain tolerance mode, and those things are hard to measure.
Do you know if you'll have Israel Antoine available?
What's that?
Do you know if you'll have Israel Antoine available this week?
He should be. We'll know here in a couple days, but he's practicing with the 1s and 2s, and we have him sitting on G, waiting on O. So.
Mike, it seemed like that the Oregon State got, I'm guessing here, 40-50% of their yardage early, and you guys made some good adjustments, and that's got to be a plus, I think, as you move forward, if your kids are able to adjust and to make some stops.
We made the stops on third downs on their 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th drives, somewhere in that area there. And early we didn't, and then we went through a phase where we couldn't get off the field again on 3rd down. Then we did. Then we got off the field on couple 3rds and a 4th. And that kind of solidified it. We had a chance to really make it difficult for them to ever think they were in the game in the first half. All we had to do was finish the first half. We let them off the rope twice on that drive. I think one was 3rd and 11, one was 3rd and 9. And they were fighting the clock also. And that kind of gave them a little bit of life at halftime. If you hold a 21-point lead going in at half, you don't know how well they'll play in the second half, but we let them back in. But what you're saying is right. We made some adjustments, got some stops, got off the field. We just didn't do enough of it.
Mike, on that same line, what progress do you want to see from your defense against McNeese this week?
Well, defensively and individually in all 3 phases, and I say this, every game is important. People say, is this a big game this week? Well, it's a big game for us because we need to continue to improve. And we know that overall our talent levels should be better than McNeese. We know that. There's no reason for me to get up here and say anything other. McNeese is a new coaching staff. They're excited about their team. They won last week. They're going to come in and play hard. They'll be all amped up. So for us, every player in each phase of the game needs to improve a little bit every day. Our discipline and our toughness and our ability to secure the football, and we need to force turnovers, which we didn't do in the last game. All those things we have to work on every day so we can get better as the season progresses.
You talked on Chuba's carries a little bit last week. Is 26 a number you're comfortable with?
Well, Sean asked me the same thing on the bus. I don't know. I mean, it looked pretty good to me. That's a lot of carries. You're looking at potentially 300 carries on a year like that. I don't know if that's real smart, but we have to ride it right now depending on how we flow as an offense. So if they're going to play over the top of number 2, the guy's going to get a lot of carries. LD and Micah need to get in there and get a part of it. Dez Jackson, the junior college back, he'll be with us. He's practicing again this week. We held him out last week. He was cleared, but we decided to hold him out. He should be back out there this week. I don't know how long he'll be now. But I guess if you're asking could it happen again, sure. He could get 25 carries this week.
Micah, what kind of has made him stand out throughout camp?
He's been awesome. He transferred in here as a 2-year guy from a deal and showed up as kind of an unknown. I tell you what's interesting is in December and January and all the way through the spring, my youngest boy and a couple of his buddies were working out in OSU's weight room on a training program. And he kept telling me about this one kid that's in there every day by himself, doing balancing drills, doing extra lifts, doing bands and all this stuff. And he does a lot. He's always giving me information on football, so it kind of wears me out. You know how like you tune people out sometimes? So he's always trying to tell me what all our problems are. So I kind of tuned him out a lot. And then the other day he was up there lifting a couple weeks ago, and he figured out who it was. And he said, 26, Micah Cooper is the kid that was in there all winter that I was telling you about that was lifting and doing extra stuff. And I said, that's interesting because he's by far the most improved player that we have. So he shows up, and he's out in practice running like crazy. He's got ability. He can make you miss. He's tough. He's physical. He's learning the offense. And it's a great example of it's obviously important to him because he was out in the weight room on his own all winter. We were in the office later in the day during the work hours, and they would come over after school. Well, he was in there lifting after he'd already lifted. And so it's pretty evident that he wants to be a college football player, and he's going to get the ball. He's going to get on the field, and he's going to be able to carry the ball. So far, he's been tough, and he understands. Pretty good story.
In talking about your running backs, you didn't mention Jamil Jeter.
He's there. Remember he hurt his ankle a couple weeks ago, and we told you that. And so he practiced a little bit last week, but he was slowed up. But he ran well last night, and I think he's fine.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I didn't know the name of the person that you were just talking about.
Micah Cooper?
Oh, I didn't say it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you know, like, as the game was happening, and I know you have to watch a million things, but did you realize as it happened that the offensive line play was exceptional? Or was it after you got back here and really broke it down?
Well, I thought they played pretty well. I think they had 3 times where they turned somebody loose, twice on one play. They got confused on one of the plays we were running on which guy for the quarterback to read, and then one time in a protection, Bryce Bray got off on his count. So I knew it was pretty good because there wasn't a lot of guys running free. But then when I got home and saw it and saw the grades and looked it over, then I realized that they had played pretty well. We're not, as I said to start the conference, it's not like we're on the Kool-Aid, but it was a good start for where we're at with what we're doing. I thought we were a disciplined football team. We got a long ways to go, but I thought we blocked and I thought we tackled, and that's really important.
The hole on Chuba's 53-yard run for a running back, that had to feel like cheating.
Yeah, and it didn't really factor in. That was your heavy metal boy there that had the hold on that play, and he didn't need to do it based on the where the ball was going. He could have just let the guy go and it wouldn't have mattered.
He had the hold on the one that got called,
Mm-hmm.
but the 53-yarder that stood, I think Wilson looped around and got the linebacker because Bray and Keys.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Forced that.
Yeah,
you literally could have driven.
Yeah, he was up on the backer. Yeah, he was up on the backer on that one. They were running out on the snap to protect Tylen. They took off and took the safety out and ran out, and then you handed it off. There was nobody in the middle of the field. So
Was that your, excuse me, Mike, was that your, like, number one takeaway from that game? Because for several years, you've been, you know, striving to have that kind of performance on a consistent basis on the offensive line. And like you say, it's one game, but it's a step. But are you relieved about it or overjoyed about it? Or?
You know, in the years, my early years here, once we got past the first year and we kind of figured out what we were doing in 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, we were people didn't really want to play us based on our physicality up front and our ability to hit you in the mouth and rush the football. Now, we weren't as maybe as flamboyant as we have been in the last 6 or 8 years, but we I guess maybe me more than anybody wants to get back to that, the way that we built this program in the early days. And so that's kind of what my goal is with our team, and then to integrate what we're doing, throwing the ball down the field, and then kind of find a happy medium based on our talent, based on what our abilities are.
Like in 09, Dez is suspended, Kendall's hurt, Zach was hurt. You get the ball to Poston like 50 times at A&M, your offensive line won that game. Well, now you got weapons all over the place. If you can get back to that level on the offensive line.
We've been fortunate to have really good skill players here over the last 10 years. So if we can just cover guys up and not turn them loose. The issue is when you turn guys loose. And so we cover guys up and then run your feet, hands inside, all the basic football coaching stuff. And recognition and covering guys up and then letting guys make plays is the direction that we're going. And then you have to run through. You got to run through tackles and get, you know, on a 3-yard carry, you need to get 5 to 6. And you just have to be a physical football team, and that's hopefully the direction that we can go. And maybe in a month or so, we'll be pretty close to getting there.
Watching games over the weekend, you guys weren't the only ones that seemed to have the idea, but plugging in some true option. You had the one touchdown that was off of that. You're thinking on plugging that facet into the offense as well.
Both quarterbacks can run, and both quarterbacks have good ball skills. And so it's a relatively simple concept based on the way you do it. But you have to have a guy that's got some natural ball skills and a little bit of quickness, in our opinion. And so that's why we have that as a little part of our game to use at certain times.
With the offensive line, a lot of people, they're all big, so they look at what makes this offensive line better. Is it individual talent? You've had guys go pro. Is it better communication skills? You got 4 starters back, new coach, new voice. What?
Oh, I think a combination of a lot of that, Myron. We got 75's played a million reps. He's had a million reps in his career. 72's played forever. Now Tevin's been around and played. So really the only new one is 78. Bryce is the only new one. Galloway has missed a couple springs because he's had some repairs to his shoulders, but he's started to play now. And when he had to play a year ago, it was in the meat of the schedule against really good teams, so he'd been thrown into the fire. So he's somewhat a veteran player. And with the speed and tempo that we like to play, recognition is very important based on, gosh, I think that when we ran the numbers on it, like 33 or 34% of the time last year when we snapped the ball in our hurry-up, the defense wasn't set. They weren't lined up where they're supposed to. So guys that have played know that even though he's not set, he's coming to this position, and so he and I are working from him to the backer versus a young guy that doesn't have anybody there, and he says, well, then I can just go on up to the backer, and then he comes right through. It seems like, well, that'd be easy, but it's not. It's harder than people actually realize it is. And so for that fact, those guys can recognize and do a better job on the run with us playing with a lot of speed.
There were a couple of close games throughout the weekend, but the Big 12 is the only conference that hasn't lost a game. Just what do you think of the overall depth of the conference this year?
Well, I mean, we've discussed this every year, and the only thing I would say is you go to the bowl games. That's the only chance for us to match up head to head, and everybody's going to have a personality and an opinion all across the country. But in this conference, we've fared pretty well in bowl games against people from other leagues. If you're gonna compete against teams in this league, in most cases, you better score points. I mean, we're going to score points, and so it's fun to watch. And I think that from top to bottom, that we're going to be as competitive as anybody else in the country. You can argue it week in and week out, but that's just what I see.
Mike, I know Gunner's a high school quarterback, but can you relate a little bit to the kid you'll see on the other side of the ball? Cody Orgeron is, Big Ed's kid.
Got a bearing problem over there in that compressor. I changed one about a month ago at the house. If I have to do it again, I guess I can.
Cody Orgeron is Big Ed's son. Ed probably gets to see him very little coaching LSU. But a father, college, father, head coach, son situation. Can you relate a little bit to that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool situation, and I don't know Ed real well, know him a little bit, but he seems like, he's a pretty emotional guy, so I'm sure that he enjoys that side of it. I can only speak for me. I just enjoy watching my kids play, and I hope that they play with enthusiasm and good attitude and compete, and they're tough. If they have success, they have success. That's based on what they put into it. That's the fun part for me, to watch when my boys play. And I'm sure he's excited. The difficult part is he doesn't get to see him play. You can watch tape and replays and all that, but it's not the same. I was up here in Eugene and the hotel. I know we played in Corvallis. We stayed in Eugene, so I didn't want anybody to think that I didn't know where we played. And Gunner and Gage had a scrimmage at Norman. And so, it's just not the same. Not being there to watch him, I can watch the tape, but it's not the same. I'm sure that's a difficult aspect of what he goes through.
What do you think of McNeese, what you're saying?
Well, the new staff, they won last week. They won by a touchdown, and, they're based on defense up to this point. They want to get lined up and play hard, run to the ball is what it looks like, and trying to be balanced on offense. They were, 120 or something rushing and 160 or something passing last week, somewhere in that area. We'll get a game plan in for them in all three phases, and then it's important than anything, we need to get better at what we do. And that'll make me feel a lot better if we can continue to improve. And then there's just the basic fundamentals and the discipline of us being a smart football team would do a lot for me this Saturday.
Is that your message to the team?
Yes, I told them that yesterday.
That they got to get better each day and have better discipline.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to carry on what we talked about. Sure, we want to continue to work and improve in each area. We have a lot of young players. Last Wednesday night when we had our travel meeting, we had 72 guys in there. And before I went over all the rules for travel on the plane, in the hotel, how to conduct yourself, all that, I needed to see a show of hands of how many guys their first time to travel, and there was like 28 guys. That's a lot. So I had to make sure we went over all the rules. Most of the time you're talking maybe 10 or 12. So we just had a lot of new guys this year that are traveling.
Do you expect Coach Gleason to do some elevator reps before Saturday's game?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting mixed reactions on what happened. Supposedly there was two guys from Oregon State on the elevator, and however many we have on there, I think there's 10 or something. I don't know how many we have on there. And two of their guys missed the elevator, and so they jumped on with them, and it like smashed, and it maybe put them over the weight. And so I told McIndoe, I said, well, were any of their guys as big as you? And he said no, and I said, then you should have picked them up, put them out of the elevator, and said, it's not my fault you missed your elevator. We're not going to overweight this car on the way up. But that was a pretty good conversation on Sunday morning that we had. But Coach Smith did a nice job. See, he doesn't have to stop the game. he can let, there's no rule that says that if your headphones go down, like at Texas, when they went down when we were down there, they just kept playing. You don't have to stop the game. And even though our coaches were stuck and we didn't have communication, but he said, yeah, let's stop the game, let's get everybody up and get them set. So he did, in my opinion, the right thing. But we had some fun with it. First time I'd seen that happen in my 30 years. Probably. Yeah. And then where do you draw the line? It's like any other rule you put in effect. What if it's not one of the 10 countable coaches? Does it count or not? So they probably just discard it and go on down the road and hope that most coaches will have a gentleman's agreement that's fair.
On the touchdown pass, I think it's Hodgson, you had A.J. Green and Jared Bernard. The receivers basically steps for him. And he scores. What do you want, guys? Do you want guys to switch that, or how do you want them to handle it?
Was that the first one? Was that you talking about on the safety or on number 8? There was 2 of them.
Two picks.
Yeah.
The end of the half was one.
Did you say the touchdown pass for Oregon State?
Yeah, the Oregon State.
Right. Yeah. The one there was one, they double moved to safety, and then they double moved the corner.
No, this is the one. That's the first one. This is the one at the goal line, or the 3 or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they should have switched it off. Yeah. I thought you were talking about the double move. They should have switched it off. Yeah. And that's a basic play for them. So, that's not a hard play. Those are things that we have to get a lot better at. Based on where they're at, their spacing, all the things, it's an easy switch. Yeah.
Can you talk about just what was the difference ultimately in the quarterback competition? Why Sanders' choice was the running ability? Or?
In the end, we felt like that he might be able to help us in the first game with his ability to run. That's really all it came down to.
Mike Yursich loved running that now or quick pass out to the wideout. For whatever reason, it didn't seem to have as much success as it did Saturday. Because that it didn't matter who caught it or who was blocking. It seemed like it worked every time.
They were blocked really well. There's a couple times that we put our tight ends out there and let them block. I thought that was a nice addition that Sean had used in the past at other places that he's coached. And we have decent tight ends who are pretty athletic, and they were able to run through those guys and just get a piece of them. They're so big that if they can just get in their way, the wideout can get underneath it and make a play. So they were blocked well on the perimeter. And Spencer does a good job of flipping it out there. He gets it out there pretty fast.
You had good balance, run pass balance, but with the greater yardage on the run side of it, is that the exact personality that Mike Gundy would want to have his offense? Good balance, but with a little more emphasis maybe on the run part.
Yeah, in most cases you won't have that. Because if you're balanced, you're going to get your yards per catch are going to be more in the throwing game. But I don't have any problems rushing for 250 and throwing for 250. And I say that meaning that if you can get anywhere near rushing for 250 yards a game, you're a dang good running football team. So that the 250 mark is a really good mark for us rushing the ball. But we have to be a little cautious on saying that because based on how people play us. I don't want our offense to think, well, if we only rushed for 175 and we threw for 400, that we were not successful based on what their safeties do. So we're a little cautious in that area, but particularly to start the year with who we are as a team, it was about as good as I could ever want.
What are your thoughts on Sterling Gilbert? A great offensive mind. Was he ever anybody you kind of kept an eye on throughout his career? Maybe thought of bringing him on here, or what do you think about him?
I didn't know a lot about him until I did a little research, and he's obviously done very well. I don't do a lot of planning on guys to hire later. Like when I hire coaches, I don't generally start that search until after somebody leaves. Now, I might see somebody that I compete against that I think, hey, does a really good job, but I don't do a lot of detail work before it happens.
Spencer said he was nervous before the game, road game. Do you talk to him about that, or is this, hey, that's out of the way, he's got his first start, this is going to be his first home opener?
Well, they're all going to be nervous. Anybody that's competitive, I mean, every time that we compete, we get nervous. That's what it is, right? And we get a little bit, our stomachs get a little bit upset, you know, we get that way, and anxiety secretes a hormone that causes that. We're all the same, and it's natural. Once the game gets going, you're all good. And I'm guessing he'll be that way in every game that he plays in throughout his career.
Could you tell it at all before the game? And was there anything
Could I what?
Could you tell at all that he was nervous before the game?
I'm never around him. Last time I saw him was at the hotel. When we get there, they do their own thing, and I do my thing and talk to the officials and do what I do, and he does what he does, and next time I see him, he's running on the field. I see him a little bit in warm-up, but I don't ever talk to him.
After the game, you talked about his demeanor that he had. Were you surprised that he was as poised as he was?
You know, not surprised. I got asked that question up there in the post game. I didn't know what to expect. It's just hard to tell with young people how they're going to react. So I wasn't really surprised, and I said this up there because he's played in high school at such a high level and really, really competitive games. That obviously helped him some, in my opinion. I'm pleased with the way he played, but I wasn't surprised. Good? All right.